0.002. That's the specific number that basically defines the entire music industry right now. 0.2 of a cent.
Right.
Welcome to this deep dive. I'm your host, and joining me to unpack all of this is our resident industry expert. And that number, 0.2 of a cent, that is roughly what a single stream on Spotify pays an artist today in February 2026.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And to put that 0.002 into perspective, it means the math is just fundamentally broken for the old model. I mean, if you're an artist and you manage to get 1 million streams, which, a decade ago would have popped champagne corks at a label office, you were taking home about $2,000.
$2,000 for 1 million plays.
Exactly.
And that is before taxes, before your manager takes their cut, before you pay your producer. So effectively, 1 million streams buys you, what, rent, maybe? If you have roommates and live in a fairly cheap city.
We actually have a specific term for this in the industry data now. It's called the burrito metric.
The burrito metric.
Yeah, 1 million streams buys you a burrito and a side of guac every day for a month. It's a really stark reality check. But here is the thing, and this is kind of the core of what we're diving into today with our sources. The whole starving artist myth, it's completely dead.
Right.
But on the flip side, the rock star myth is dead too.
Because we are seeing the rise of something else entirely. It's what the source material is calling the creator middle class. And honestly, despite that terrifying streaming number, it's the most optimistic data I've seen in years.
It is optimistic. It really is. But it requires a total rewiring of how you think about a music career. We've pulled a massive stack of sources for this deep dive to paint a picture of the landscape. Right now we've got financial breakdowns from Cable Free Guitar, trend analysis from major music forums. This is really fascinating doctoral dissertation on the concept of interpolation.
Which totally explains why every song on the radio sounds like it's from the 1980s, by the way.
Exactly. And of course, the new industry reports on the AI settlements that have basically reshaped everything over the last 12 months.
Right. So our mission today is to figure out how musicians are actually paying their bills if streaming is literally paying in pennies. We're going to look at why bands have effectively gone extinct, the death of the bridge in pop songwriting, and how the industry finally stopped fighting AI and decided to, partner with it instead.
It is a messy, fascinating landscape. And I think it starts with realizing that for the modern working musician, the music itself isn't the product anymore.
It's the marketing.
It's the marketing, exactly.
Let's unpack that, because looking at the data from late 2025, the math just does not add up for the traditional model. You mentioned an artist in the pre-show who had, 450,000 streams?
Yeah, 450,000 streams, and they made about $1,000.
Which is wild, because in the 90s, if you sold 450,000 CDs, you were buying a house in the hills. You were on MTV.
You were wealthy. Today, that level of engagement is barely a hobby. And that is where the pivot happens. The smart musicians operating right now, the ones actually making a living, have completely stopped looking at Spotify or Apple Music as revenue generators.
They look at it as a funnel.
Right. It's a loss leader. The music gets people in the door.
Which brings us to the stack strategy. The sources from Cable Free Guitar really break this down well. It's not about having one giant hit song. It's about having maybe 10 different trickle income streams that eventually add up to a real salary.
Diversification is the only survival mechanism left. But it's evolved, A few years ago, the default advice was just get on Patreon, build a Patreon.
Right, everyone had a Patreon.
But the data shows a big shift away from that now. Artists realized that on those platforms, they were still just renting their audience. They were still subject to algorithmic changes and heavy platform fees. Now we're seeing this massive move to owned infrastructure. Things like Mighty Networks or Bandzoogle.
Because they own the data, the emails.
They own the email list, they own the community, and they completely control the user experience. And the pitch isn't just, hey, donate to me because streaming pays nothing. It's a tiered value exchange.
Yeah.
The sources highlight this super clearly. For $3 a month, you get the demos.
But for $20.
For $20, you get the private Zoom hang.
That is the key shift right there. You aren't actually selling audio anymore. You are selling access, proximity to the creator.
Access, intimacy, and scarcity. Look at the drop culture trend. I mean, it used to be that a band would print 500 t-shirts, shove them in the back of a van, and just pray they sell them over a 9-month tour.
Sweaty shirts in a box.
Right. Now they're taking a page directly from the sneaker world. You do a drop. It's a specific limited design, and it's only available for 72 hours.
Which creates artificial urgency.
Absolutely. And you don't even hold the inventory. You use print on demand. But you market it like it's a supreme drop. It turns standard merchandise into an event. And the data shows fans actually spend 40% more during a drop window than they do on an always open merch store.
Wow, 40%. I was also pretty surprised by how big the commission market has become in these reports. I mean, I knew about Cameo for celebrities, but this seems totally different. This isn't just a quick happy birthday video.
Oh, it's way more functional. Platforms like SoundBetter or AirGigs have just exploded. We aren't talking about a video greeting. We're talking about regular, everyday people hiring their favorite indie artist to write a custom acoustic song for their partner's anniversary. Or a podcaster paying for a custom bass line for their intro.
It's kind of like a return to the patronage system of the Renaissance. Just democratized. You don't need the Medici family to fund your studio. You just need 1,000 normal people willing to drop $50 for something unique.
Which perfectly segues into the hero of our source material, Mona FX.
Oh, I loved this case study because if you just looked at Mona's Spotify numbers, you would 100% assume she failed. You'd think she gave up.
You would. She is a 42-year-old bassist and producer living in Portland. She's not famous. She isn't touring stadiums. She doesn't have a record label backing her. But she is pulling in over $75,000 a year purely from music.
That is a very solid middle-class income, and she's doing it without the whole road warrior lifestyle. She gets to sleep in her own bed.
That is the creator middle class in action. And her breakdown is essentially the blueprint for 2026. She has a fan club, right, on her own site. It only has 150 members.
150, that's nothing.
It's tiny.
Yeah.
But they are hardcore fans. They pay a tiered subscription that nets her roughly $2,000 a month. So boom, that covers her rent and utilities right there.
Just 150 people, that is such an achievable number for a working artist.
And then she stacks it. She takes on custom songwriting commissions, which brings in another 1,000 years a month. She makes and sells these samples, acts like lo-fi bass loops that other producers buy to use their own beats as their platform. And then the big one is sync licensing.
Background music for TV and ads.
Exactly. Getting her instrumental tracks placed in Netflix shows or YouTube pre-roll ads, that brings in $2,500 a month.
And notice what is conspicuously absent from that entire list. Streaming royalties.
They are totally negligible. It probably pays her phone bill, if that. But you know what the most interesting part of the Mona FX profile was? Her tool set. She isn't just sitting in a room jamming and hoping someone discovers her. She uses Zapier to automate all her email marketing. She uses ChatGPT to handle the metadata tagging for her sync library submissions. She treats her art like a literal small business.
It's unsexy, but it works. So while Mona is handling the business side, I do want to pivot to the music itself. Because the sources we pulled from the Let's Talk Music forums and industry analysts make this really compelling argument. They say these economic pressures are actually physically changing the structure of the songs we hear.
Oh, absolutely they are.
Yeah.
If you feel like music sounds different now, or if you feel like songs are just getting way shorter, you are not imagining it. The economics are directly dictating the art form.
The first thing that really stood out to me was the extinction of the band. I honestly hadn't realized how stark the numbers were until I looked at the charts in the report.
It is brutal. Major labels have become incredibly risk-averse over the last 5 years. And a band is just a massive financial liability. I mean, think about it from the label's perspective. If you sign a 4-piece band, you are splitting that advance 4 ways. You're paying for 4 hotel rooms, 4 plane tickets, hair and makeup for 4 separate people.
And you have to manage 4 different egos.
Right. If the drummer gets mad at the lead singer, your entire business investment collapses overnight. It is infinitely cheaper and way safer to just sign a solo artist. With 1 face to brand, 1 ego to manage, and 1 bank account to fill. So the charts are completely dominated by solo acts now. That classic band dynamic, the messy interplay of people in a garage, has basically vanished from mainstream pop.
And the songs those solo artists are putting out are shrinking.
The incredible shrinking pop song. The bridge is basically on life support.
Why is that? Because I kind of miss a good bridge. That used to be the whole emotional peak of a track.
It's all about the skip rate. In the streaming economy, you get paid when someone listens for 30 seconds. You also really want them to repeat the song. A 5-minute epic with a long, wandering bridge just takes too much time. If you cut the song down to 2 minutes and 20 seconds, the listener might loop it 3 times in the same span of time. That's triple the revenue.
So we are literally optimizing art for the algorithm.
We're optimizing for vibe. That is the other major keyword popping up in these reports. We've largely moved away from the power vocal, the Whitney Houston belted out center stage moment, toward these vibey vocals, atmospheric, breathy, mixed lower down with the instruments.
Because we use music as wallpaper now. It's background noise for working or for scrolling through TikTok.
Exactly. If a vocal is too demanding, it breaks your focus. You skip it.
Mhm.
But the biggest structural change, and the one that honestly feels a little bit cynical when you dig into the sources, is interpolation.
Yeah, we need to clearly distinguish this from sampling because I think a lot of people use the terms interchangeably, but they're very different.
They are entirely different, legally and financially. Sampling is taking a physical piece of an old recording. You take the actual audio of a drum break from a James Brown record and drop it into your laptop. To do that legally, you need permission from the record label who owns the audio and the publisher who owns the composition. It is incredibly expensive and notoriously hard to clear.
But interpolation is what?
Interpolation is when you don't touch the audio recording at all. You just re-record the melody or the lyrics yourself. So you sing the melody of Material Girl, but you do it with your own voice in your own studio. By doing that, you bypass the record label entirely. You only have to get permission from the publisher.
It's essentially the nostalgia hack.
Weaponized nostalgia. The dissertation we read charts this massive spike starting around 2017. Part of it is the blurred lines effect. Everyone is so terrified of getting sued for accidentally sounding like an older song that they just lean into it intentionally. They admit they are copying a classic hook up front and happily hand over a percentage of the writing credit to avoid a lawsuit.
And we see this everywhere now. The sources pointed to Ariana Grande's 7 Rings.
That's the textbook example. She interpolates my favorite things from The Sound of Music, but she totally recontextualizes it. It's not Julie Andrews singing about kittens and warm woolen mittens anymore. It's Ariana Grande singing about financial independence and buying diamond rings for her friends. It triggers this deep, subconscious familiarity in your brain, but it's wrapped in a modern trap beat.
Ava Max is another one they mentioned.
Kings and Queens. The hook of that song is literally just Bon Jovi's You Give Love a Bad Name, which, hilariously, was itself heavily borrowed from a Bonnie Tyler song. Yeah. It is just turtles all the way down.
But the sources suggest this isn't just artists being unoriginal or lazy. This is actually being engineered from the top down by private equity.
Yeah, and this is where it gets a bit dystopian. Companies like Primary Wave and Hipgnosis have spent billions, literally billions, buying up the publishing catalogs of legacy artists. Whitney Houston, Prince, Bob Marley. They need a return on that massive investment, so they aren't just sitting back waiting for someone to stream an old song. They are actively pitching. They go to a major label and say, hey, have your brand new pop star write a track built around this synth hook from 1985.
It's pure asset management.
It is. Look at Young Gravy. His song Betty uses the exact melody from Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. The sources are clear. That wasn't just a happy accident in the studio. It was a calculated boardroom-level move to turn a legacy asset into a viral TikTok trend.
It really feels like we're stuck in this loop of recycled culture. But, if you think that's disruptive, we have to talk about the robot in the room, the AI landscape.
2026, the year the music industry finally made peace with artificial intelligence. Or, well, at least signed the settlement paperwork.
Which is a huge shift from where we were just 2 years ago. In 2024, the narrative was entirely AI is the enemy. It was all panic and massive lawsuits. Now the tone of these Billboard reports is AI is a partner.
A partner that pays. That is the crucial difference. Look at the trajectory of Suno. In 2024, they were getting sued into the ground by the RIAA. Everyone assumed they would just get Napstered out of existence. But they survived. The tech was just too good to kill.
The stats say they're generating a Spotify catalog's worth of music every 2 weeks now.
The volume is staggering. And the industry realized they couldn't litigate it away. They had to license it. The exact same thing happened with Udio.
Right, Udio had that massive settlement with Universal Music Group late last year.
And look at how they pivoted immediately after the ink dried. They stopped marketing themselves to the public as a push-a-button make-a-fake Drake song tool. They totally rebranded as a licensed remixing and fan engagement platform. They legitimized themselves.
So the industry has basically split into these two distinct camps, the generators and the protectors.
Exactly. On one side, you have the licensed generators like Suno and Udio, and on the other side, you have the new copyright discourse, companies like Sound Patrol.
Sound Patrol sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon, but it's actually highly advanced forensic AI.
It's audio fingerprinting on steroids. Sound Patrol basically scans the entire internet, YouTube, SoundCloud, TikTok, and it detects AI-generated content that is utilizing copyrighted voices or restricted melodies. If you try to upload a track using an unauthorized clone of Taylor Swift's voice, Sound Patrol flags it and rips it down before the page even loads.
It's a total arms race. The generators get more realistic, the detectors get more sensitive.
And the streaming platforms are caught right in the middle. Deezer has actually been a massive leader here in transparency. They started aggressively tagging AI content back in 2025. They reported seeing 50,000 AI-generated songs being uploaded to their servers daily. They realized if they didn't filter this out, their human-curated editorial playlists, like their chill vibes or workout lists, would just be completely swamped with robot music.
So if I'm listening to a premium curated playlist on Deezer today, I know a human being actually produced that track.
Yes, that has become the premium selling point, human-made. It's exactly like buying organic vegetables at the grocery store. You are paying a premium to know it wasn't grown in a server farm.
But there are also these more ethical hybrid models emerging. I was really interested in the section on 11 music.
Ah, yeah. The Fair Trade AI model. 11 Labs launched this last year. They signed sweeping deals with major rights holders like Merlin and Cobalt. And the deal is incredibly smart. Let us train our AI models on your artist's actual studio stems. And every single time the model generates a new track based on that specific training data, we pay a micro royalty to the original artist. It actually creates a new passive revenue stream for the artist, rather than just stealing their distinct style.
And then we have KLA. This feels like where the actual listener experience is heading.
KLA is the absolute wild card for 2026. It's essentially an interactive streaming service. The core concept is that the music file isn't a static, locked thing anymore. When you listen to a song on KLAY, you can strip out the drums if you want, you can speed the tempo up, you can swap a guitar solo for a synth solo in real time.
It basically legitimizes the whole sped up and slowed down remix culture that dominates TikTok.
Exactly. Instead of kids illegally bootlegging a remix and posting it, the platform lets you do it officially and the royalties are tracked. It completely changes the definition of what a listener is. You become a user. The passive experience of just hearing a song is becoming this active manipulation of stems.
Okay, so if I'm an independent artist listening to this right now and I'm not a tech giant or backed by a venture capitalist, what do I actually do with this information? We have all these new AI tools, all these economic threats.
We actually found some fantastic practical advice in the source stack from producer Drew Mantilla. He talks deeply about the specific production mindset you need to have right now.
He talked about demoitus. I feel like I've definitely suffered from this.
Oh, we all have. Anyone who has ever recorded anything has. Demoitus is that condition where you record a rough idea on your phone or your laptop in your bedroom and you listen to it 500 times. You fall completely in love with the flaws, the muddy bass, the weird vocal take. Then you finally take it to a pro studio, the producer cleans it up, makes it sound huge and radio ready, and you absolutely hate it.
Because it doesn't sound like the original.
Right. But the original was just a rough sketch. His advice is so vital for this era. The demo is not the painting. You have to be willing to kill your darlings to make the final product competitive. Because remember, you aren't just competing with the indie band down the street anymore. You're actively competing with AI generators that can spit out 10,000 perfectly polished tracks an hour.
Professional, he also touched on splits, which is usually the boring legal stuff that ends up ruining lifelong friendships.
It ruins careers. The standard industry practice he outlines is 50-50 for a co-write. If we both write it, we split it down the middle. But if the artist wrote the entire song beforehand and the producer just came in and polished the arrangement, it's usually 75-25. The golden rule here is to establish those splits in writing before the song is released, before it blows up. Trying to negotiate a royalty split after a song goes viral and has 1 million streams is just a guaranteed recipe for a brutal lawsuit.
I want to wrap up today with what I think is the most fascinating paradox in all of this research. We've spent this entire deep dive saying that recorded music basically has zero monetary value now, that streaming pays literal pennies, and yet physical media sales are higher right now than they have been in 30 years. Vinyl and CDs are absolutely booming.
They are. But here's the massive twist in the data. People aren't actually listening to them.
Wait, what?
The reports show that nearly 2/3 of the people buying vinyl today do not play the record. A huge chunk of them don't even own a turntable.
So why are they spending $40 on a heavy piece of plastic?
Because it's not audio to them. It's a souvenir. It's a collectible art object. You stream the music on Spotify because it's convenient. It's like water flowing freely from a tap. but you buy the limited edition splatter vinyl to say to the world, I am the kind of person who supports this artist. It's purely identity signaling.
It's just like buying a concert t-shirt. You don't buy the shirt because you're physically cold. You buy it to prove you were in the room.
Precisely. And for the creator middle-class artists like Mona FX, that psychology is their absolute lifeline. The music is just the marketing funnel. The physical object is the merchandise that actually pays the rent. The audio itself is basically just a free flyer for the $40 t-shirt or the vinyl record.
That is such a fundamental shift in how society values art.
It is. The song itself has just become a utility. It flows infinitely. And I think that raises the big existential question for the next generation of creators, especially with AI fully entering the chat. If the audio is free, completely ubiquitous, and can be generated infinitely, what can you actually sell that the machine cannot easily replicate?
The story, the context, the actual human connection.
That is literally the only thing left that is scarce. An AI model can generate a mathematically perfect pop song in 10 seconds, but it cannot be a 42-year-old bassist from Portland with a unique worldview in a physical community.
Can't be Mona.
No, it can't be Mona.
So to leave you with a final thought to chew on today, if the audio itself has just become utility like water from a tap, and platforms like KLA are letting users manipulate that water however they want, what if the next generation of songwriters doesn't actually write songs at all? What if they just focus entirely on designing the visual worlds, the lore, and the prompts, and leave the actual audio generation entirely up to you, the listener, in real time?
That's a wild thought.
Next time you stream a track, just remember you haven't really paid the artist. If you love the vibe, go buy the vinyl. Even if you don't have a record player.
Buy the burrito.
Buy the burrito. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.